So welcome to another edition of Globespan 24/7. I'm your moderator tonight, Vishnu Bisram. Globespan 24/7 is owned and published, owned and operated by Mr. Singh, with Devin, the ever popular and present Devin, as the techie operator. Tonight, we'll be discussing current issues in Guyana. You would recall in previous editions, we hosted politicians from both sides of the aisle, the government and the opposition, on current issues and subjects relating to the government's first anniversary in office. Tonight, we seek the opinion and views of the public, civic groups, and with us tonight would be three very, very prominent individuals who are distinguished in their own rights. Our topic for tonight is the Gas to Shore project, crime, and the relief grants that have been rolled out by the government over the last couple of weeks. With us tonight would be Mr. Leyland Roopnaraine, a very prominent individual in the New York City area, involved in housing construction, and is also well known as a political advocate here in New York as well as in Guyana. Mr. Leyland was very, very involved in that struggle for the restoration of democracy in Guyana during the 1980s. I know of his involvement because I was also part of that struggle. Even though I was based in New York, I would go to Guyana and spend my holidays from education as well as from work to join that struggle. I also encountered Leyland many, many times in Trinidad, where he had gone, as I did, to solicit support. And Leyland was also involved in some other activities pertaining to Guyana and Trinidad. I recall my experience with him in which we were hugging banned food items from Guyana. We were hugging them to take them to Trinidad that were prohibited. Also with us tonight is Mr. Mike Singh and Dr. Turhane Doerga. Leyland, you missed my introduction, my very kind and generous introduction of you.
I'm right here.
You were not listening or paying attention.
Very much so. It's just a camera block.
Ah, I see. So you didn't.
Every single word.
Doerga as well, Mike Singh. So let me just a brief Dr. Doerga, rather than me asking him to introduce himself. Turhane Doerga came to Guyana in 1988 and was instrumental in the reviving of the rice industry under the IMF privatization agreement. He boasts a success story as Guyana is now exporting more than half a million, 25,000 tons an annum. He's worldwide active as a consultant to build a modular refinery to reduce production costs. However, now he agrees that gas should be the first option, although he still believes that a refinery should be built as there will always be a market for fossil fuels. He is an active supporter of political groups, and I will not get into that. I'll probably leave him if he wants to talk about that. And then we have Mr. Mike Singh. I was going to ask Mike Singh to give us his introduction on his own, but he did send me something, so let me just mention very briefly. Mike Singh is a globally respected telecoms consultant and an investor in the Indus Americas subsea cable system, the BRICS cable, which is expected to solve the bandwidth constraints faced by the emerging markets of the Southern Hemisphere via the linkage of Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas. In addition, his firm provides wide-ranging consultancy to governments and private businesses. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mike also used to write very prominently in the newspapers in Guyana. I haven't seen him written recently. And I believe he also has some experience in Asia, living there and working there, as well as in the Middle East. So perhaps he would want to tell us about that later. So, gentlemen, welcome. Audience, listeners, viewers, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will begin with the Gas to Shore project, if you don't mind, gentlemen. Good idea, bad idea, Leyland? You got to unmute. Unmute, Leyland, unmute.
He's still muted.
Mr. Roopnaraine, can you click the mic button on the bottom left?
All right, why don't we go with Dr. Turhane Doerga in the meanwhile?
Well, the project itself to bring the gas to shore, for me, that is very important for Guyana for two reasons. One is it will alleviate one of the problems Exxon has, as it cannot pump back all of it back into the Norte. And Guyana needs cheaper energy to be able to do production at a competitive rate. The project itself, I do not understand the cost of it. I think it is very high, but I do not want to be negative about it because it is promised by the government that they will be publishing the complete feasibility and how they came to those numbers of the investment which has to be made. I would prefer that government don't get into business, because everywhere on earth where government gets into business, especially in these mega projects, look at Africa, look at everywhere, you have a slew of corruption coming behind it. So I would prefer that when the project and the feasibilities are done, that there are open tenders in the international arena where reputable companies can bid on building the gas pipeline, and not the situation which we have now, which 900 million, as they said, is being just peddled and said that that is what it will cost. So that is my first position. Yes, the gas pipeline must come. Also, the location, I'm not very clear of why that location is chosen. But I'm waiting for the government to be transparent, as they have promised to do, so we can scrutinize it and then come to conclusions. But most of all, I would love to see that they go to open tenders. That's my position.
And you believe there will be interested parties in such a massive project?
Absolutely, absolutely, because we one of the companies which I'm on the board of, they have ready financing and everything. It's just like the refinery. If you can get if the modular refinery would get an offer of the government where they say the same price Exxon pays Guyana, a local refinery would pay the same, I can assure you in 2 years you have a modular refinery running here, and complete private sector.
Oh, okay. I'll have follow-up questions. I'll come back to that. Let's get a view of Mike Singh.
Mike. Dr. Bisram and everyone else, salam, namaste. As you did say, I used to write a lot, but the newspaper said we don't want to be shut down. So we
Sorry,
don't want
Mr. Singh. Sorry, can you just turn on your video for us?
Video, isn't it? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
Salam namaste to everyone. Good evening. Dr. Doerga, Devin, the team, Leyland, Roopnaraine. Of course, you, Vishnu, this luminary that I've read a lot about you, the Nactopodes, you're always on top. Yes, I used to write a lot in the local media in Guyana, but they refused to publish my letters sometime because they said they don't want to go to jail or they don't want to be sued. because I don't have any filters. So the Stabrook News, I think when they see my letter, they all try and turn off the lights and head home. So they don't really, but it's fine. You know, I've got other places I can share my views. The project in itself is a good one, but how did we arrive at 900 million? I don't know. Did someone pull this out of a hat? Was this conceptualized by Harry Houdini? So we need to have solid numbers, solid empirical data, solid economic fundamentals to support the cost, because this is a huge undertaking financially, infrastructure-wise, and also in terms of management of such a gargantuan or mega project. The government has been talking about public-private partnership. Well, if you want public-private partnership, there must be equitable and balanced bearing of the responsibilities and also the, may I dare say, the liabilities. Don't expect the private sector to carry all the risk and the state can take a free ride. I'm sorry. There are only a few companies in the world that can pull off a project like this construction-wise. And I will talk about one of the best, the biggest, it's Bechtel. Bechtel built the Hoover Dam. They helped to create the whole eastern United States, you know, the drainage and irrigation systems in the Colorado River out west. Bechtel built the Channel Tunnel between the UK and France. Bechtel built the world's largest refinery in Jamnagar in Gujarat, the Jamnagar refinery, which is owned by Mukesh Ambani, Asia's richest man. So an American company like Bechtel can deliver, because this is a company will do things by the books. There'll be no shady, corrupt, or non-transparent business dealings. So Guyana can draw them on that billion US plus or multi-billion US plus package the United States Development Finance Corporation has out there. Our hate family can never pick up the phone and call and say, I want this. They have a board of directors, they've got a process, and it has to be followed. No one there is above the process. So if the government of Guyana can get the economic fundamentals right to support why an investor must make such an investment in a country, especially where we're shifting towards renewables. And Guyana has a limited window. It's a real pity that when I brought Siemens, and Doerga will remember, I brought Siemens in 2015, or rather 2018, to Guyana to talk about investing and building this gas project. And I had actually written to NICIL expressing my interest in getting 3,000 acres of land at Wales to invest in cotton production, to invest in other kinds of production of sheep, goats, and what have you, and to set up a towel factory to supply Walmart and Amazon. Regrettably, Nisel never bothered with me, but they helped their friends and family. I feel somewhat down in me that if President Barra Jagdeo was the president of Guyana, or Irfan Ali, and I had written to them, and all these sugarcane workers were about to lose their jobs, I might have gotten a different response. And in fairness to this government, they inherited a big karahi of crap, excuse my language, and they're struggling each day to fix this problem. I mean, I don't know if they're drinking a mixture of acai, Martival 12, Horlicks, and even Capadula in there to have the energy they have. Every day, I see the ministers of this government out in the field, being actively engaged with people, not like the previous gundas who were sitting and living the good life and people were suffering. And you know, Vishnu, I don't really never held any brief for the PPP. I was one of the PPP's harshest critics. You remember that. But I'm disappointed in the PNC. I'm a Hoyt guy. I love Desmond Hoyt. He was my friend. But none of the people today running the PNC, like Harmon and Granger, they should be locked up for committing crimes against humanity, putting people through hell. Where did all this money go? The worst thing that can happen to a country is to mortgage a future in the hands of idiots. And I say this openly, David Granger is like the lead character in the Emperor's New Clothes.
Let's sidetrack. Let's stick to
the
issue.
Sure. I think the government has a good plan.
Just to
Sure.
follow up on a point you made, I have of each component of the gas station. I recall reading it in one of the media. I don't have the numbers, but for the cost to it that came up to approximately $900 million. So let's get a chance to hear from Leyland. Leyland, are you there?
Sure.
Yes, I'm right here. I'm right here.
So Leyland, we have had unanimity that there must be gas, and what's your view?
Well, first of all, I don't think anyone can say with certainty that this project will succeed, because if you look at the persons who are involved in this project, gas, whether we liquefy it, which is the best way to do it, we have to sell this gas very far away, because our neighbors, Suriname, Brazil, and Venezuela, and Trinidad, have their own oil, so they won't be buying our gas. Thirdly, in order to use this gas to generate electricity, you have to convert all the power plants to gas operated instead of oil operated turbines. Above all else, if we start to pump gas and we have an excess of gas, what are we going to do with it? We have to re-inject this gas back into the hole, into the oil well. That will be a total waste of money. So this project is poorly thought out. And the people who are in charge of this product, they are just self-anointed oil experts. And if you look at these people, they have been part and parcel of many projects that have ended in abysmal failures. I can go on to give some examples.
But Dr. Doerga himself would tell you that the gas itself has been re-injected into the holes below the sea level. That is necessary in order to have high pressure to pump the oil upwards. I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but from my reading, that's what I
That's
picked
right.
up.
By re-injecting the
Dr.
gas, you get pressure for the oil to come upwards. If you're going to consume this gas, right? Yeah, you extract this gas and you consume it in whatever means you want. It means there's a low pressure in the oil well. That means you have to pump this gas using electrical pumps. That is will be a more costly adventure, and now, of course, will saddle Guyana with an extra production cost, which means Guyana will get less money because the production cost will go up, and Exxon will bill us for that.
Right, but we haven't seen any financial figures in those engineering issues as yet. Dr. Doerga, what's your comment on what Leyland said?
Vishnu, just an interjection here, just for the sake of our viewers, this project started out at $400 million to bring the gas to shore, and the place that was selected most likely was Clonbrook on the east coast of Demerara. Now, to shift this gas pipeline to Wales is not a feasible project, it's not a practical project, it's more of a political nature project because Wales, sugar estate, was closed down. But if you look at the manpower that Wales has, they're not technically proficient to handle anything with oil and gas. You have to have a whole new training school for people.
Yeah, but the same issue would have at Clonbrook or anywhere else in Guyana. So we simply don't have the technology.
Yeah, I would want to comment as follows. No, the project as we have seen it is that when this gas comes to shore, you will use to generate electricity for whatever needs the country has. But the business which is now developing is the business of tanktainers, where a lot of companies are converting from heavy fuels to LNG gas. DDL here is already running on that. That's one of them. We now see the first ships which are running on gas because it is not only cheaper, it's also environmentally better. The whole thing with us with bringing the gas to Wales, I agree with Leyland that you need to have industries which will be willing to start use this gas to convert it into other products and also to use the energy it can deliver to produce products and create a sustainable economy for when gas and oil is diminished. So my problem is with that 900 million, and I'm afraid with the players who I happen to know, which are now busy with this project, that the energy is not going to be feasible because the 900 million will be spent. The shareholders of Exxon or whoever will be putting up the money will be rich and happy. You understand? And we will be saddled with an energy cost which will not be able to compete, for instance, with Suriname. So where would people go who wants to come in an economic zone to do manufacturing if the electricity price is going to be based on the investment which is done? And I will be surprised if Exxon will be delivering the gas free of charge. But business-wise, that's idiotic. Nobody should deliver gas free of charge. So first of all, the owners of the gas should get their fair share when the gas is sold to whatever electricity plant there is here. And that gas has to be, that price has to be competing with everybody else. This is the reason why we use the comparison of the modular refinery. We don't want to hear the government telling us that, yes, go and bid for the oil, the Guyana oil. No, you need to sell that crude oil to a local refinery at the same price Exxon is paying Guyana. That is what you ought to do. If you're not doing that, some corruption is going on, and it's unacceptable. That is why government should not be in private enterprising. They should leave it to the private sector. And the only way to do that is with open bidding. The feasibilities should be done by people who are reputable. I'm sure they again will use McKinsey. McKinsey is in all kind of fraud. You understand? And what you now see in McKinsey is that the reputable guys in McKinsey are branching out and starting to do research and feasibilities on their own. So the older companies are so in of lesser developed countries. The thing with Guyana and Suriname is that we have, our population is quite educated. Nobody is going to tell Turhane Doerga that the expertise we need in oil and gas, we can't find it. It's all for sale. You can hire people. And in our diaspora, I find all kind of Guyanese. If you pay them the same, what you're paying the foreigners, I will guarantee you they will flock down. But what are we doing? We let people like Exxon bring in people who come here. If you only know how much Prados are driving around, which are always parked because they're on the rig, but that is what they get. And the houses, there's no houses available anymore in Georgetown because it's terrible. So my thing is that the whole project, yes, we need to do the gas, bring it to shore. But there are ways of doing it. This is where I agree with Mike, that for God's sake, bring in real professionals, let free enterprise function by competition, and you will have the best deal. But when you will see that government is involved and everything is very secretive, it is promised that we would have full disclosure of the feasibilities and so forth. But most of all is there must be tenders. Who is going to build this thing? You understand? And that must be open tenders, because then you're going to have the real guys competing, not the guys who in a back room cut the deal. So that's my position.
Yeah, just for clarification, we must not look at Wales complex as only generating electricity. From what I read, Wales industrial complex will produce electricity for other manufacturing businesses. It's not clear to me what these other businesses would be, but it would include other petroleum product industries.
Yeah.
I don't think there'll be a refinery there. Perhaps Mike knows more about it, can clarify.
Well, having lived and worked in the United Arab Emirates for many years, and having been one of the architects of the Abu Dhabi Vision 2030, I urge every Guyanese to take a look at the Khalifa Free Zone, KIZAD. That the Khalifa Free Zone was built on reclaimed land. And this is a zone that I urge you, go online, look at it. This could be a good blueprint for Guyana, because the UAE has auctioned the blocks, but the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, is in partnership with Exxon, they're in partnership with Shell, they're in partnership with Occidental in the development of these fields. Only 2 days ago, the National Oil and Gas Company of Pakistan, first time in the history, was given an opportunity to work together with ADNOC in developing some additional gas fields of the UAE. Abu Dhabi sits on 15% of the world's proven reserves of oil and gas. Yet, the United Arab Emirates economy, specifically Abu Dhabi, only derives 20% of their total GDP from oil and gas. They've already moved away towards renewable energy, towards things like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, investing in companies like Airbus, GE Health, the Cleveland Clinic. The UAE has always felt, more than 50 years ago, Sheikh Zayed, Baba Zayed said, and I heard this, that this oil will one day and this gas will run out. What is going to be our future? So since the 70s and 80s, the leaders of Abu Dhabi, who really control the UAE, made a conscious decision. We're going to get as much money as we can, but we will invest it in three things: sustainable, hyper-converged, resilient, digital infrastructure for the 21st century. We're going to invest also in delivering good quality of health and housing and water and recreation to our people. And thirdly, we're going to invest as much as we can to raising the human capital of our people, because one day when this oil and gas finishes in Abu Dhabi, or more so the UAE, what are we going to do? Are we going to wait to be caught with our pants down, or would we have already transitioned towards a non-fossil fuel focused economic mainstay? And they never did move away from that. They kept their eyes on the ball. And just about 3 years ago, this question was posed to Minister of the Future for the UAE and to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Mohammed Maktoum. And Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, and Sheikh Maktoum of Dubai. The question was, and I'll say it, what are you going to do when the last barrel of oil runs out in the UAE? What is your plan?
So let's apply to Guyana.
Guyana has a limited window of opportunity to exploit all this oil and all this gas. But
and that's what the government says. The vice
president
has.
I agree. But we have to be careful we do not become victims of Dutch disease by thinking strategically, not for today, but 10, 20, 40, 50 years. For every dollar we invest, what is going to be the guaranteed rate of return for future generations, for quality of life, for the environment, for the sustainable index? So if the government is going to go into Wales in this huge way, spread the risk. Do it with private companies, but it has to be above board. It must be able to withstand international scrutiny, and the numbers must be able to stand on their own. This cannot be voodoo economics or necromancy in the mix. It has to be solid, fact-based, driven, empirical evidence, hard data driven, because you're committing future generations to something that they may not have been born as yet to ascend to. So you have to do your homework. Now, Wales will allow Guyana to move into the downstream processing, which can be used for producing ammonia, urea, nitrate, which are used for agriculture. We can also export some of that excess energy to northern Brazil. There is a project called the Arcus Norte project. It's an IDB-driven project that connects the grids of Guyana, Suriname, French Guyana, and northern Brazil towards areas like Belém in the state of Pará. So there is demand, but you've got to ensure, Dr. Bisram, you dot the I's and you cross the T's, and decisions are made in a totally transparent, above board, and reputable, and above board, totally open manner. Otherwise, if it's not done this way, any form or hint or perception of corruption is going to create a cataclysmic political backlash.
Leyland, you agree? Let's get Leyland, then we'll come to Dr. Doerga.
Well, in 2017, Exxon proposed to construct this pipeline for $400 million, right? Inclusive of an onshore processing plant.
Wow.
And an LPG, that's liquid petroleum gas plant. Without any explanation, 4 years later, the prices jumped from 400 million to 900 million. There is no justification for this. To produce 250 megawatts of power to the national grid is is a significant boost to Guyana's lopsided energy supply sector. However, we're in a position where we cannot supply electricity to countries like Brazil. Brazil has hydropower, one of the largest hydro plants in the world. Brazil has its own oil and natural gas. Why should Brazil buy from us? Thirdly, when you build a pipeline and you run out of gas, obviously if you run out of oil, you will run out of gas. What happens to the pipeline? You have to dismantle the pipeline. That's an additional cost because apparently our so-called self-anointed oil exports, barrages, Lear, Ashley, Singh, Michael Brassington, haven't really given this whole project a serious evaluation. Because if you look at these people, they haven't succeeded in any project that they've built. The project is shrouded in controversy. No one is making clear the projected costs, and all projects like this go into cost overrun. So this project is going to cost not 900 million, but another 900 million, another 200 million more.
Gosh.
Then if you look at the people who are in charge of these projects, they have been in charge in several projects in the past 10 years. We can start with the Skelton Sugar Factory, where Mr. Jagri was an engineer in sugar. We can start with the hydro project, where he was an engineer in hydroelectricity. We go to the Surrender Hospital, where we were still at $800 million. He became a health expert. We go to the Barbies Bridge, where he became an engineer to build a bridge. We go to the Marriott Hotel, where cost overruns was over $200 million US, and yet we have no accountability for the Marriott Hotel to this date. Above all else, the Marriott Hotel, and I'm giving you this example because this is exactly what's going to happen to the Shore project. The Marriott Hotel was given over to Atlantic Hotels Inc. to manage, where Mr. Brassington was the CEO and Marcia Nadir was the deputy or was the chairwoman or something like that. They kept 3 meetings in 2 years. Here you have a situation that I will sum up in a very simple Guyanese colloquialism. When you can see something in the day, don't take fire stick for look for them in the night.
Leyland, in all fairness to the 4 names you mentioned, the Vice President, Minister Ashley Singh, Mr. Brassington, who's in charge of Gas to Shore, and Marcia Nadir, they're not here. And perhaps we should invite them one day to come and address the issues you raised.
We should, yes. Let them be accountable to the people, not to me and you and Mr. Doerga and Mr. Singh. Let them be accountable to the people. Remember, Ashley Singh and Mr. Brassington were facing many charges from the previous government, and when the government changed, the charges were dropped.
But Leyland, the charges are also politically motivated and driven too, eh?
I don't think so.
We have to take that. But
there's a lot of evidence, but let's move forward.
But it wouldn't be fair to just to indict them and they don't have an opportunity to respond to those allegations and charges.
Well, there are a lot of PNC ministers who also should be indicted. Okay, you see, Guyana is based on a culture of theft and corruption, and that's not going to change. From the time Borno Banfla, when we started eating roti and bread, we were committing a crime. Because you committed a crime by eating a banned substance. And that has permeated society. So anything you want in Guyana, you have to pay for. Even though the public service offers its services free, because the public service is paid for by taxpayers' money, yet taxpayers have to go and pay for a simple thing. Simple things. Try obtaining a replacement national ID card. Try obtaining a death certificate, a birth certificate, or a passport. And tell me what you think of the public service.
Okay, Dr. Doerga, we interrupted you. You wanted to make a comment before we go on a break.
Yes. You know, Leyland, my chairman of the board, when I was the CEO of the company, would say, you have a terrible problem. You think logical. And and that is sometimes very difficult in politics and in countries like Guyana and Suriname who are now developing. I want to join Mike in his position of that free enterprise and what has to happen in the end. yes, it is true oil and gas will finish, but there will be always quantities which are needed, especially as fossil fuels, because I don't see the bulldozers as yet running in the middle of the interior on electricity. So you will need a little bit of fossil fuels as well. The other thing is that the proposal for the life after oil and gas, which has to start now to one curb what exactly Mike is saying, the Dutch disease, it is proposed to do hemp. And that was proposed since 2015. So I'm happy that it is on the table. I'm happy that the president himself said that under his stewardship, hemp will be regulated in Guyana and it will be planted. So that is one of the things which I think is a very good thing and gives hope that that we can curb the Dutch disease. The other thing is that if I'm impressed with one minister, that is the Minister of Agriculture. I've never seen a minister working so hard.
I totally agree. Absolutely agree. I've never
and the thing is that my other career was in rice. Rice has a fantastic future. The shortages of food in the world are not going to go away. So the prices are up. The only thing I hope is that there are systems in place that the farmers can again enjoy high prices like we had in 2011, 2010, and so forth. So a farmer were getting $6,000 for a bag of pie.
So, Dr. Doerga, let me just interrupt you. We got to go on a break, and when we come back, we will resume where you stopped. You're watching, viewing, listening to Globespan 24/7.
Travelspan Curry Duck Curry 2021 in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic was a massive success. Starting from Thursday into every night after, entertainers were on hand. Then came the Dominican-born Bollywood dancers that just awed the crowd. Many of our guests took day tours and visited the local market areas. Curry goat, curry, and bake and saltfish were among the tasty delights. Then came the big moment of the Curry Duck Curry competition. All guests were able to enjoy duck, and halal duck was also available for all Muslims. History was in the making with West Indian and Indian culture with Travelspan Curry Duck Curry. Let Travelspan arrange your flights, vacations, honeymoons, or cruises, and let allfromonesupplier.com deliver your duck, goat, and chicken, or all your West Indian items. On behalf of Travelspan, All From One Supplier, and sponsors, we wish to thank you for making this trip a memorable one. Dave West Indian Products is the only distributor of 100% authentic West Indian products. Dave West Indian supplies fish, vegetables, curry, spices, sodas, and coconut water, plus ghees and much more straight from Guyana and the Caribbean. For all your shopping needs, visit Dave's Guyana Fish and Grocery Market. Dave West Indian products are also available in West Indian stores, Key Food, and allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian has a full line of the most desirable products to fit all your needs. So visit Dave Guyana Fish and Grocery Market on 118th Street on Liberty Avenue, or in Maryland at 7505 New Hampshire Ave, or any West Indian stores or allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian, your 100% authentic West Indian product. Get your meals delivered directly to your home. Order your curry duck curry, goat, or chicken, plus your dalpuri roti and bus-up shut from allfromonesupplier.com. We ship your meals directly to your home, so you can enjoy it upon arrival or refrigerate it and take it out when you're ready to eat. No more waiting in lines and no more losing time. Now you can treat yourself with a tasty curry and roti. You can also order solos, ices, pear jacks, coconut water, and much more from allfromonesupplier.com. It is free shipping to all U.S. states on all your curry duck curry, goat, and chicken, plus sodas and all West Indian items. So treat yourself or send a gift box of your favorite food, tasty pastries, sweets, and coconut water, or any West Indian item, products such as fish, meat, curry powders, pepper sauces, and much more from allfromonesupplier.com. Call today at 718-551-3292 or visit allfromonesupplier.com. Remember, it's free shipping throughout the U.S.
So welcome back, viewers, listeners, to our Globespan 24/7 program. With us tonight are three very distinguished guests, Dr. Turhane Doerga, Mr. Mike Singh, and Mr. Leyland Roopnaraine. I'm your host and moderator, Vishnu Bisram. Globespan 24/7 is owned and operated by Mr. Nohar Singh, with Devin as our techie operator. Tonight we are discussing, or had discussed, Gas to Shore project, and we also would like to touch into the issue of crime in Guyana and the relief grants. So, gentlemen, any final point, Dr. Turga, before I recall I cut you off?
Yeah, just that the Dutch disease can be curbed. We have one thing on the table which the government is seriously looking at, and legislation is being put in place. This is what I was told. That is the hemp crop. I'm sure that will help curb the Dutch disease.
I believe the Attorney General had met with some hemp people to work out some legislation.
The thing is that we proposed legislation based on what has happened in Miami, Colorado, and so forth. There are other people who provided him with how it was regulated in Canada, and also a group of New York. And he told us that he has hired experts out of New York to advise him. And it was now, that is as far as we know, it is on the desk of the other ministers to comment on it. And after that, it goes to Parliament. And the president
much has been talked about this so-called Dutch disease. Well, it's not so-called, it actually existed in developing countries. The Vice President, Barajak, focused quite a bit on the Dutch disease, and he said Guyana, the government is taking measures to avoid the Dutch disease. So I don't want to dwell on that subject anymore. If we could now touch the issue of the relief grant. The country suffered enormous flooding late May and most of June. The country was inundated with water, a lot of damages to crops, homes, infrastructure. Government is giving out relief grant. What's your view? Leyland Roopnaraine. Let's go with Leyland first. Leyland?
Well, one of the main causes of the flooding is poor sanitation of all Guyanese. Because when you dump your garbage in the waterways, it affects everybody. Secondly, the water runoff from rain is not being collected on the soil. They all run off because of the huge amount of concrete land on people's houses. The Department of Buildings, what you call again, the Central Housing Plan Authority, should mandate that 1/3, just like New York, all houses should have open green space, which will absorb a huge amount of that water. Thirdly, in regards to flooding, many of the retention ponds that were built by the Dutch have been filled up, and many have become housing schemes. Lastly, we need a backup to the Mahaica Conservancy to take off water that spills into George so that they can have a retention right there. So you need to pump that water into the Mahaica Conservancy. Those are 4 points that will make flooding a little less dangerous and alleviate so much rainfall running into the drains, which cannot take off this amount of huge rainfall.
But Leyland, you know very well that in Guyana, the people themselves don't want to follow the rules and regulations when they're told how to build at certain locations. This authority to go ahead and do it, they still want to go and occupy land that is not safe for them. They want to squat and so forth. So it's not for a want of trying by the government to put regulation.
Well, the Central Housing and Plan Authority should have an enforcement arm, because there are a lot of times when people have a one-family house and then they nail up a couple of wood and put a couple of bricks on and rent that portion out, and they have the same amount of electricity there and the same amount of water going into that house. So that puts extra strain on the infrastructure of the private house as well.
But we have the same problem here too.
Yeah, well, here we can cope with that because we have contingency measures. Guyana does not have that. Guyana has outgrown its water supply, right? And when we speak of water, let's examine water. Water is consumed every day, and the water that's consumed every day simply runs into drains that are blocked. Above all else, we don't have an adequate water supply system because if you drive around Guyana, the proliferation of those ugly-looking black tanks on trestles is an astronomical cost to individual homeowners to have their own private water supply. In other words, it seems in Guyana, if you want milk, you have to have your own cow. That's a disgrace. Black tanks are all over the place. We should have an increase in water pressure and let people pay for their water, and they will save $500,000 to put up 2 tanks on a trestle. That's what it costs. You have to have a pump, you have the plumbing, and you have the 2 tanks with the trestle. $500,000.
Wow.
Multiply that by the amount of tanks you have household. The amount of household you have black tanks in Guyana is an astronomical figure.
But Leyland, I always thought it's a simple solution as well, except when I went around and investigated. I don't think Guyana, because we are the I don't think we'll be able to have enough pressure to pump water, the kind of water system we have, the kind of pipes we have, into people's homes. And Guyana is not the only one country that has these black tanks. They're very, very prominent in Trinidad, as you would have seen, having been there so long in the 90s and so forth. I also saw them in
Trinidad is not a land of many waters, and it's a shame that Guyana, the land of many waters, is importing water from the United States for people to drink. That's a horror story right here.
Mike saying.
Well, the United Arab Emirates is one of the world's largest producer of ionized water, desalinated water from the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf. As they say, they get large amounts of salt water and converts it into the fresh water. And according to the International Water Council, the UAE has one of the best quality water in the world. Now, in Guyana, when I'm there, I avoid Georgetown. The place is dirty. It's filled with kamikaze drivers. You're going to probably not make it home. You become a road statistic. You don't know which streets are one way because there are no signs indicating. You don't even know if you're on the right street. Most of the times, if I'm there, I go by memory of what the street's name is, but it's a terrible thing. Solid waste management in Guyana, by the time they get around to fixing that, we would have colonized Mars. It is abysmal. I have seen tin cups, plastic cups, tampons, you name it. It's all there in the public drainage system. I went across to La Grange area, and I've got photos I can send, on the western bank of the Demerara River, and I thought I was near the Sargasso Sea. The entire place is littered with plastic bottles, plastic containers, and many of these things have got remnants of polluting and contaminating fuel. I mean, things like diesel oil, lubricants, and that is seeping into the Demerara River. Guyana is basically, when it comes to solid waste management, it's an ecological wasteland, right? And nobody, including Savons, I don't know who were the other people, Puran brothers, who are involved in the management of the Ogle dump site, I mean the Eccles Bosch Hog dump site. But if you live in Eccles and at evening you open your window and you try to breathe the air, you better have some smelling salts or a gallon of Limacol nearby. You're going to faint. I thought the other day I was there, this was cow manure. But there were no cows in the area. That stench from that hog's bush is nauseating. Luckily, I had the physical constitution to find my way downstairs from the veranda. Or I might have been a statistic. So, whilst we are worrying about all these things, let's fix the problems of the concrete jungle. You know, when Guyana, right up to the 50s and 60s, on its way to so-called independence, the minds of the day decided they'll fill up all the canals. And where do you expect the water to go? Georgetown, the amount of people in Georgetown is more than the city could handle. The city has outgrown its absorptive capacity for people, for waste, for using the roads, for dwelling, and a lot of things have gone on unsupervised. There are two buildings at the corner of Camp and Rob Street. One is Teleperformance, the other one has got a number of businesses. The fellow who owns those two businesses wanted to build a pathway high above Rob Street. You'll think like the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which Turhane will remember. And he was denied. There are no building codes. At the rate they're going in Georgetown, you're going to see we're heading to become like the Tower of Babel, right? Let me tell you about Uzi Dayan, the former head of Israeli intelligence. He said to me in his office a few years ago in Tel Aviv, you know, Mike, the Titanic was built by experts, but the Ark was built by a novice. The man told me the Titanic was built by experts, but the Ark, Noah's Ark, was built by a novice. So a lot of the times you don't need experts to tell you what is there before you. So we really need to maybe dig back new canals to absorb the water. The water has to go somewhere. And if it cannot flow, it's going to one day come up to your bed. My late father told me, he said, you know why I'm up here on the highway? He said, one of these days, you're going to wake up in Georgetown and you're going to find the Atlantic Ocean near your bedpost. So he went to higher ground. And he was just a simple agriculturist. So we need to do a better job with recycling, reusing. I think they need to start charging people in Guyana for garbage disposal based on the weight of garbage you are producing, like in Holland and Denmark.
But Mike, you know that's not practical. Look, as you observed, people just dump garbage. They pollute the place.
I saw a 55-gallon drum, a 45-gallon drum coming down the Sussex Street Canal. Mm-hmm. I said, what the hell is this? And there are parts of Georgetown. I was in the middle of the Congolese rainforest. The grass and the shrubbery is so overgrown.
So in New York, in America, in Canada, and UK, where the diaspora live, they wouldn't do the kind of things they do in Guyana. And in fact, some of the Guyanese tourists who come from abroad, go to Guyana, also do the same thing, dumping garbage all over the place as well. Yeah.
Zero
Let's hear from Dr. Doerga. relief grant we were discussing.
Yeah, coming back to that, let me put it this way. I'm impressed with the swiftness the government reacted to help the people who had flooding. And of course, I hear all the ramblings of corruption and so forth. Look, you will not be able to satisfy everybody, and no matter what you do, you will have a percentage of corruption. So what that is concerned, I'm happy, and I'm happy. I can't even imagine what it would be if Granger was in power, because then it would be a disaster. So I'm happy from what I see. The only thing I'm worried about is that where do we go after this? Do we have contingency plans? Are we taking measures to, when a thing like this occurs again, that we can curb it before it starts? I don't see that clearly as yet. I must, on the other hand, say when it comes to pollution and managing water, because Georgetown is about water management, and coming from a civil engineering background, I can tell you, I was so happy that the president just walked out one day and caught all these guys sleeping.
Oh yeah.
And the whole thing is, a lot of them are politically appointed people. The government took over, and everybody know that I'm not affiliated with the PPP, but when they do a good thing, you ought to say it. What they have inherited is out of this world. And of course, people will say, yes, but before Granger, they were 22 years in power. I'm saying, don't let us look at the past, let us have learned from it, and let us fix it. So everything Mike and Leyland have said about the pollution and all those things are all valid and true, but we can't change it in 2 days. So the way we are going now, I mean, I feel it could be more efficient, but there's work being done. And I live in Georgetown, and I see that my garbage, if I compare it with 10 years ago, yes, is being collected now. Yes, there is competition now. There's Sivons, there's Puran, there's other people. Yes, I see that we don't have condemned trucks from England and other places collecting garbage, breaking down anymore. I see brand new trucks well, most of them come from China, you understand, but they work. So the service has improved a lot. Water, I can't remember when we were out of water, which is 10 years ago, it was every day. So there's a lot of work being done. And while I feel we can do better, but there is progress. So it's not all a dark cloud. Things are happening. I was surprised with the flooding in the interior, because one would think that that is far higher than the sea level. What went wrong? This is where we say that people build villages where they should not be building villages. You understand? But who is advising them? But you have to take into consideration that we had 28 years of lawlessness during Borna. Then the PPP was there, but then I felt they got out of hand. That is why I supported the change in 2015. But then again, what I saw what happened then, I had to jump back to get rid of these guys, because in after 22 years, they haven't learned that the 28 years, they have destroyed this country. They haven't learned anything, you understand? So Guyana is in transition, and because we have worked in many countries, and Mike can speak about that more than me, you know, it takes time. The only thing is that you need good leaders. You need good leaders. And that is the reason I'm not a politician, and if I would be one, I would be a bad one, because we fire people who don't perform. And in politics, I have learned that you don't fire people. You pat them, tell them don't do it again, but do vote for me. That is not how you run a country. That is the reason also where I say the government should please stay out of business. Let the private sector, in competition, do the right thing. The gas pipeline, competition. The flood relief, yes, a fantastic effort has been made, you understand? But now everybody is looking at what will we do in the aftermath? How do we prevent this to happen again? And we'll be ready if a thing like this occur again, because climate change is real.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I agree with your final remarks there, because I was there and I went to several locations where the checks were being distributed for the flood relief grants, and people welcome it. Of course, there will always be complaint I didn't get enough, but it was also pointed out that for the previous 5 years during flooding, there was no relief grant to anyone. So people welcome this change in attitude of this government over the predecessor. Aside from flood relief grant, there was also the We Care grant for students who are back to school, and an increase from the previous government. I think it's 19,000 now for each student, whereas before it was substantially less, and not even half of that. So we're moving on now. We have talked enough about grant, I believe. So let's talk a little about crime. Of course, crime would deter investment anywhere. So you lived there, Turhane. Mike, I think he lives somewhere in the U.S., I believe South.
Yeah, I'm in Miami, but I was in Guyana recently.
And Leyland is in New York. So I don't know when was the last New York went to Guyana to experience crime, but one doesn't have to go there. I mean, I've been there. Crime is the leading issue in Guyana right now. Mike, what's your view since you were there recently?
I'm a big advocate of public flogging. Everyone knows that. I don't think the government in Guyana has the testicular fortitude.
The Saudi solution.
Yeah, well, the Afghan solution, because I lived and worked in Afghanistan. I don't want to be politically correct. I want to be plain old correct. I come from the Lee Kuan Yew school of thought. And if you do the crime, you must do the time. Plain old simple. I'm not putting you in prison because I love you and this is going to be 4 meals a day. You're going to get barber salt to shave with, and you're going to you want TV, you want Skype, you want this. No, you committed crimes. You owe society. How about bringing the back on the chain gang? Get them out there to do some serious work. Get them out there to clean the city. Get them out there to reform, faith-based reform, right? President Donald Trump said, second chance, third chance. But if you're a person that stole because you're hungry, I will forgive a man for that. He's hungry. And he took a piece of bread. I would not come down on anyone. But if you're able-bodied and you work for the Guyana Defense Force or the Guyana Police Force, and you are found taking your weapon and using it to terrorize the public and rob them, I'm in all favor of public execution. I've always said it. Build the guillotine, Desmond Hoyt said. Hang them. And Turhane, do you remember? Desmond said, hang them high. And every man jack came to their senses. We cannot have a society where a minority of people, irrespective of race, color, creed, class, political agenda, sexual orientation, holding people at ransom, and the police is not doing their job. If you can't perform, you get out. If you can't take the heat, leave the kitchen. I've always maintained a simple philosophy. You either lead, follow, or get out of the way. So if you have persons that are not cutting the mustard, the president of Guyana is in charge. The buck stops with their finale. If he's afraid to make decisions, he can hire me and I happily make those decisions for him and enforce the rule of law. If he's afraid it's going to cost him some political fallout, hire Mike Singh. I will be the fall guy. I don't care. I don't want to be your best friend. I'm not here to eat curry duck and drink rum. I'm here to get the job done. And people in Guyana are tired of being ripped off. You know, when I'm in Guyana, I drive around with a small hatchet. So if you try to rob me, I'm going to take your hand off. I don't have a gun, but I'm going to resort to some medieval measures that delivers a quick blow. Secondly, if the police stop me and they ask me for a bribe, I say, here, I'm a believer in transparency. I'm against corruption. If you're hungry, here is a tennis roll and cheese and a cola. And many of them look at me like either I'm cuckoo or not from here. Carry on, brother.
Okay. So Leyland, flogging,
Yes, sir.
public flogging and execution. In support.
No, we're not going to take anything backwards because you might have to flog half the PVP and half the PNC. I'll tell you something about crime. Crime has many dimensions. There are moral crimes, ethical crimes, financial crimes, legal crimes. For instance, there are many people who lose their land and their houses when they live abroad because someone forged their signature and registered a transport in the deed registry. That's a legal crime.
Yes, that is
There
crime.
isn't any checks and balance to that. There is moral crimes when you refuse to do certain tasks that you're paid to do for people. You can refuse to issue someone a passport because they don't pay you a bribe.
Well,
That's been done. I have many cases people have come and spoken about this. But the warrant crime in Guyana is not really based on rich people being robbed by poor. Crime in Guyana has long been instigated by racial and political motives. If you remember the slow fire, more fire that Hoyt had chanted when he lost the elections, that's a crime in itself. That's an instigation to crime. The judiciary is also responsible for crime because many people who have committed armed robbery are set out on bail. Crime is also perpetrated over and over because of inadequate police prosecution processes. Because the lady that struck down the thief a couple of days ago, I think she should get an award. The bandit who was struck down by her was one of the bandits who had held up the Princess Casino.
what?
He got off because of a lack of evidence. That shows very cool. You see, we can curb crime if we eliminate this culture of bribery that permeates Guyana society. And this culture of bribery has been there for decades. We have to change that. To quote a very famous person, democracy cannot be enshrined in a constitution. It must evolve as a social culture. Nelson Mandela. That's what we need. We need a different culture to curb crime. Better law enforcement, use of cameras in the city, no bail for armed robbery. I think all rum shops should be closed on Sundays. There should not be any alcohol drinking on Sundays in public. In fact, there should not be any alcohol drinking in public. Drink if you want to drink in your house or in the rum shop. There should not be any rum shop close to a school or a place of worship. Now, there are other aspects of crimes that our ministers don't even ever think about. There's discrimination in housing, which is a crime in itself. People are given higher interest rates because of the way they look or because of the area in which they choose to live in. The discrimination in given house lots, that's a crime in itself. Armed robbery is in itself doesn't constitute the only vicious crime in Guyana. Their armed robbery may result in $100,000 being theft, being stolen. But you know who commits the biggest crimes in that country? The elected officials that we put for decades from both sides of the divide, as we say, from both sides of the oil. Both sides of the oil. Our archaic banking system lends to corruption and lends to criminality. People, in purchasing whatever items, will not carry a certified check. People want to see cash. The mere fact that you transport a bag of money from point A to point B lends yourself to be robbed and killed. Recently, there was a post-mortem being conducted at La Penitence two guys walked in with guns and robbed the guy. Everybody there was robbed with their cell phones and whatever they had in them. If you go to the ATM machine again, there's a crowd around the ATM machine just looking at you, waiting to puncture you. You go to the bank, there are people looking at you. There's a huge amount of crimes in that country that people don't even want to talk about. We have people who get gold band when they're ministers as gift for their birthday. I mean, those people should be in jail. That's a $800,000 gold band. We look at a guy who steals a $5,000, go in front of the court, can't afford a lawyer, he goes to jail. The ministers who are responsible for stealing the bulk of the money that's stolen in Guyana are never even charged. And if they're charged, like Ashley Singh and Brassington, whether those charges were fruitful or were politically motivated remains to be seen by the court, not by Vishnu Bisram and by Mr. Doerga and Mr. Singh. The court makes that decision. And the court has said that there is enough evidence for Ashley Singh and Brassington to be prosecuted, yet the charges were dropped. And I may conclude by saying, although Guyana is rampant with crimes, not a single minister has ever gotten jail.
That's because Lee Kuan Yew is not the one running the country.
Well, let me comment. Let me
yes,
comment on
Dr. Doerga.
Let me comment a little on that. You know, during the last campaign, I went to a political party meeting, and wasn't the party I support, but I felt in a democracy, everybody, you have to hear what the other side has to say. And
the two of us spoke on the same platform at Manhaika, if you remember.
Okay.
With cameras.
Yeah. So a citizen told the man who was the president at that time, he said, Mr. President, you know, the president first said that the theft has to stop and he wished that he could implement Sharia law to chop off these guys' hands who thief. And then an ordinary citizen said, but Mr. President, if you do that, none of your ministers would have a hand.
So what?
I guess you have a one-handed government.
Yeah. So that tells you the story. So come back to crime. I live near to a place called Sophia. And when I have to have my car washed, I go into Sophia because the guys, they wash cars and so forth. And I'm shocked where the first time I went, they asked me, he said, you know, you have a lot of courage to come with this car here. I said, what are you going to do? They said, and then they changed. They told me that, you know, people see us like thieves. That was significant for me because those guys are aware the way they see them. But I asked them, and what are you going to do about that to change that? Then they told me, we don't have work, we don't have food, we don't have nothing. So you have to change you have to start with creating jobs. That's why I was so happy with 50,000 jobs being created. That's to be seen if we will achieve it. If we achieve half of that, I'm happy already. And then the social system has to be there. It will take a lot to do it because after all these decades, as Leyland say, of lawlessness and no rules and regulations and thieves with $5,000 bail come out, you rob a man, $100,000 bail, you come out, you go to the next robbery. You understand? The judicial system, lawyers and judges, which can be bribes. Don't let nobody tell me it's not true. I have seen people lost their property where marshals just declare that they have delivered the documents and they were never delivered and people lose their property. So it has to start from the top, not from the bottom. This is where I totally agree with Leyland. You understand? You have to do a complete review of the system. Don't forget that the donors have made many attempts. Everybody know how much money is pumped into the judicial system. For instance, the registry. Billions of dollars went into there. But you go today to the registry and you can't buy a half food for somebody. You ain't getting no document. I can assure you about that. You understand? Because I deal with it every day.
Yeah. Passport office as well. Go for a permit at the police station when someone dies and see what happens to you. You spend
Yeah.
the whole day there.
So what gives me hope? What gives me hope? In the past, if you write a letter or you call somebody an authority, rest assured nothing happens. What I experience now is that if you call somebody an authority, things happen. So there's a major change with that. That is why I'm optimistic. And I'm accepting that it won't change overnight. So
you're saying when you call the government, you're able to get service?
Well, you have to call the man at the very top, and I know where to find them. What aches me is the ordinary man who is there outside in the sun. You understand? He don't know who to call. He just feels that I pay my taxes and I need service. And it's on all levels. Let me tell you today, because of COVID, you go to a bank like Bank of Nova Scotia. You have to stand there in a line, sun, rain, everything. The guys don't even have the courtesy to put a tent there that people can stand if there's rain or sun, that they can wait there. But it's not the personnel. The personnel is doing what they can, but nobody is fixing the system. So the guys who know who to call, you get your stuff fixed. It is about the ordinary man who is asking himself, where do we go from here? You understand? And I urge the government and anybody in government that, you know, I'm not a PPP supporter, but I see they do a lot of things good. They redeem themselves. What I do hope is that, for instance, the oil contract is fixed and that they, with the same speed they're at now, try to fix all these social problems and that we implement a proper social system where a man, if he doesn't have a job and he can prove that he can find a job, that he has food. We don't have to invent those social systems. They do exist. Today, I'm telling you, although all this is done and kudos to the way they trying to handle COVID better than any other country in the Caribbean. But at the same time, at several clinics, because I'm with a party who is with young people who are, a lot of them are doctors. We are now hearing that they have to tell people to go and buy the medicines because the medicines are not supplied.
What?
And this is okay, yesterday.
So,
you understand? So the system, when I do call somebody an authority, in this particular case, the medicines were sent, but they never arrived. So you have to understand the whole system has to be overhauled. So while I'm happy that their minister hardworking, it's on the corruption and the mischief is on all levels, and that takes time. It really and truly takes time. And that is the reason why with this whole oil pipeline and the whole social system and so forth, I'm saying, you know, they're only 1 year in power. They need a little bit more time. At the same time, let me make it very, very, very clear. I see a lot of the guys who were in skullduggery are back. You understand? And I see some deals going on with police vehicles, agriculture tractors, and so forth, where I'm very concerned that, you know, are we back to the old system? So I'm concerned about that. I'm really and truly concerned about that because a lot of the charlatans are back. And I hope that these young ministers within this government can take a stand to these older guys who will not change unless you put them in jail. So that is what I want to say about the crime.
So gentlemen, listen, we only got about 3 minutes left, so I'll give you a minute each to summarize. Mike Singh, and then Leyland, and finally Doerga.
Thank you. You know, corruption fuels poverty, and according to Mahatma Gandhi, poverty was the greatest form of violence. I believe a lot of this corruption you could minimize and possibly eliminate by using technology. But nobody wants to use technology the way it should in Guyana in the delivery of public services because it cuts out the middleman and there is an electronic footprint that tracks every transaction. Guyana has many smart people in the tech field. Salahuddin Nasruddin, You got Aftab Karimullah. These are bright guys. You got myself. I work in artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, the fourth industrial revolution. We have a lot of bandwidth. Why doesn't the government, the president of Guyana, assemble a core team of technology evangelists led by myself, free of charge, and let us come together and create an e-Guyana based on the Singapore model? Because what we've got to the NDMA and eGov, that's a whole bunch of Chinese spy gear from Huawei and ZTE. And you need to rip all that nonsense out and shove it down, where the sun will not see it for decades. The Chinese are no friends of Guyana. They're the worst. They created this Wuhan virus, and we are all paying the price. They wanted to take down the West. But you know what? God bless Donald Trump for seeing through them.
Leyland?
Well, on the three topics that we discussed, I'll just make one brief point on each one. I think that crime in Guyana should be handled by an independent authority and not the police force. I'm talking about state crime. Because if I remember, the fiber optic cable cost Guyana $40 million, and you still can't get a proper WhatsApp call to Guyana. And that was Mr. Ramotar's son, former president. I don't think the government should get involved in any form of business. Government should facilitate business and be an administrator of the business. In this regards, oil, that's the oil contracts should be put in front of Parliament, and the oil blocks should be up for bidding instead of being handed to one or two conglomerates worldwide. Secondly, government handouts are prone to corruption. And this handout that was given to farmers who suffered losses to their crops is rife with corruption, because many farmers who never even planted a bore tree have received money. People have called me from Guyana and have said this to me. And what we will have with these handouts for farmers who have suffered losses is the Cobra effect. The Cobra effect was when in Delhi under the British rule there was a proliferation of cobra snakes, and they were paid. People were paid to bring a cobra head. So what happened is that people decided to rear cobra in captivity now and sell the head. So the cobra effect backfired. So these people will wait on another flood to collect money without planting anything. Finally, many people in Guyana, doctors and institutions throughout the country will tell patients that we cannot perform this operation in this hospital or this procedure here. But I have my patient can come. The cost is only $200. That's a crime in itself against all humanity. For doctors to I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? To infringe on people's basic right. They capitalize on people's poverty. You call it exploitation, because a lot of time people ask me that the doctors ask me if I can ask the doctor to reduce the price. Some of the doctors I know. And do you have any relatives in America and Canada? If you do, the price is going to go up. Finally, I would like to extend my deepest sympathies to Pandit Haribol, Pandit Rishi Prasad, who was beaten to death by a bunch of drunken youths. My condolences to the family, and I will leave it one single point. Rum is the destruction of society, especially the Indian people in Guyana. And in part, I would like to say this. Almost every rum shop in Guyana is owned by Indians.
Very sad.
Leyland, just before Dr. Doerga gives his final comment, I do want to point out that in the United States, we do have flood relief and other relief. It's known as government insurance for production. So I don't see any harm done in giving assistance to farmers who have lost what would be billions and billions of dollars in Guyana money. But yes, there should be some way of monitoring.
This grant should be given to farmers who are paying taxes to the government. That's how we will know how much production they have.
Well, good
Many of these farmers do not pay taxes, and they just claim 10 acres and 20 acres of rice being damaged, and there's no proof of that.
Dr. Doerga, final comment.
Yeah, on a On a more optimistic
So
note, this gentleman, I came here in 88,
investigations and
and
many farmers. Taxpayers' money going with you.
Okay, Leyland's having this after this echo. Go ahead, Dr. Doerga.
yes, okay. On a more optimistic note, I came here in 1988, and I know what I saw. This was the poorest country in this hemisphere. So we have improved. Things are going better. It's not optimal as yet, but for me there is hope. And I want to tell everybody, the bare fact that you all and me can discuss openly what we feel is wrong in Guyana, there's freedom of speech. That's for me, that is very important. And things are changing. We need a little bit more time, and I look forward Guyana and Suriname becoming the Dubai and the UAE of the Caribbean. I believe in it. I think we can do it. If we have people like Leyland and Mike and so forth continue analyzing and pointing out to the government what has to be changed. Vishnu, I read your teachings and your writings. You know, I'm upbeat about my country. That's what I want to close today. Thank you.
Thank you for the optimism. Yeah, Mike?
I agree with what Turhane says. I see a lot of positive changes. I congratulate the government of Guyana on being active. I went into a ministry and I needed some help, and an officer, a lady, explained to her I needed to get an importation license because I'm bringing in 150 cakes of soap. I found that odd. I needed an importation license to bring in 10 boxes of soap. So I went from the Ministry of Trade, where the lady was very nice, Ms. Namdev, to expedite it. And I had to go to the food and drug place. I was shocked. 10 cases of soap. For charitable donation, I needed an import license. I found that mind-boggling. Not even in Afghanistan, they'll subject you to this kind of bad policies. So the government has to revisit these things, because it's like you're stepping back into the medieval age in a COVID era to ask someone, you need a license to import 10 cases of soap.
We can go on and we'll be here all night.
But let me add, I agree with Turhane, the government is trying. I give them a lot of marks. They're out there, they've shown compassion. They inherited a very bad situation, 6 months trying to fight for freedom and democracy. And we know of all the foolishness that went on. Even Jesus will get a nervous breakdown if he came to Guyana. I've said this so many times. It's not a normal place to get things done. And the government, they're doing an interest. It's like a balancing act, you know. The vaccine is there. Why can't the other people who got vaccine say to their supporters, go and get the vaccine? Why are they holding the government, the public to ransom? That is not responsible. I think the PNC's current leadership needs shock therapy. These people have lost touch with reality. The cooks, the porters, the nurses, why are they withholding their services? Those are mission critical services, and they should be given serious talks. You can't withhold those services. You can't let politics get in the place of logical and sane thinking and doing the right thing from a humanitarian perspective. You can't hold people ransom, and nobody would have liked the PNC more than I did. But I think the parties today become a Looney Tune place. The people who run the PNC are out of touch. They've lost the faculties.
So, gentlemen.
But let me add here, Turhane, for Turhane and others, Guyana should not be the Dubai. We must become the Abu Dhabi of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Well, but that will be the final point, final note. Thank you all, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dr. Turhane Doerga, Mr. Mike Singh, Mr. Leyland Roopnaraine. Thank you, viewers, listeners, for tuning in tonight. Globespan 24/7, owned and operated by Mr. Nohar Singh, with techie operator, Mr. Devin. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Good